All right, let's dive in. Today, we're looking at Imran Khan.
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah, he's had quite the life, hasn't he? From cricket star to, well...
To Prime Minister.
Right, Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Yeah.
How's that for a career change?
Talk about a curveball, huh?
Totally. And we've got this article here. Imran Khan, a character chosen for a cause. It really digs into how he went from sports hero to a politician trying to, I guess, change a whole country.
Reform, yeah.
Yeah, reform a whole nation, big ambitions. But did he actually pull it off? Or was it all talk? That's what we're here to figure out.
I think one of the most interesting things about Khan is how different his early life seems compared to his political career, you know?
Like, what do you mean?
Well, think about it. He came from a pretty privileged family in Lahore, got a great education. Then he becomes this international cricket icon, led Pakistan to victory in the 1992 World Cup.
Can you imagine the pressure?
Oh, absolutely. The pressure, the excitement, the everything. It would have been so easy to just, coast on that fame.
Just enjoy the good life, right?
Exactly. But the article seems to suggest there was always something more he wanted to do. Like there was this deeper drive.
Yeah, like it mentions, he founded the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party, PTI, back in 1996. That's not something you just do on a whim.
No, not at all. That's a serious commitment.
So he goes from leading a cricket team to leading a political movement.
That's a big leap. Makes you wonder, what sparked that change?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
What makes someone go from the world of sports to the world of politics?
It is. And the article points to this deep belief Khan had in, a greater purpose for himself. And you have to remember the state of Pakistani politics at the time.
Oh, yeah.
It's notoriously complicated. Power dynamics are entrenched. There's a history of instability. It's a system that often favors, who you know, not what you know.
So not exactly an easy place to jump into.
No, especially for someone with Khan's background. It was a big risk.
Absolutely. And the article is pretty honest about the hurdles he faced.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't sugarcoat anything. For almost 2 decades, Khan and his PTI party had to deal with accusations of corruption flying around, political maneuvering from their rivals.
Basically every trick in the book?
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, the system itself was resistant to change, like trying to turn a giant ship around.
That sounds incredibly frustrating.
Yay.
Did he ever just want to give up, like, this is too much?
You'd think so, right? But no! He kept pushing forward. That resilience, that's a key takeaway I got from the article.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He spent nearly 20 years building up his party support base, connecting with everyday people who felt ignored by the bigwigs in politics.
Just playing the long game.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
You know what? It paid off. In 2018, he was elected prime minister.
Wow. That is a comeback story.
For sure. This former sports star, who a lot of people thought had no chance in politics, suddenly he's leading a whole nation.
And a nation facing some serious challenges, no doubt. So what did he focus on once he was in office? The article talks about this ambitious agenda, guided by what they call the principles of Medina.
Yes. To really grasp Khan's approach, we need to understand those principles. They basically refer back to the model of society that the Prophet Muhammad set up in Medina way back in the 7th century.
Okay, so a pretty old school inspiration.
You could say that, but it's seen by many as this blueprint for a just and equal society rooted in Islamic values.
Interesting.
Think of it like this: a system that prioritizes social welfare, a strong sense of community, and a justice system that works for everyone.
So that's pretty idealistic.
It is, and those are the core elements.
So Khan saw these principles as a way to, I guess, fix the deep-rooted problems in Pakistan. Poverty, corruption, that sort of thing.
Exactly. He wasn't messing around with small changes. He was aiming for fundamental change. He wanted to shake things up.
Ambitious, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't just theoretical. He put these ideas into concrete policies. For example, he launched this massive anti-poverty program called the ESOS program.
Okay, and what did that do?
It provided direct financial assistance to tons of low-income families, millions of them. He also pushed for affordable housing projects to tackle the housing crisis. And he wanted to make healthcare and education accessible to everyone, not just the privileged few.
Sounds like he was really trying to create a level playing field.
Right, that's the idea. A system that works for everyone, not just the elite.
That's a message that resonates with people all over the world, right?
Yeah.
Fairness, equal opportunity. But the question is, could he actually make it happen in a place like Pakistan?
That's where things get a little more complicated. See, while his supporters see these initiatives as proof of his dedication to social justice, his critics argue that they often weren't implemented very well. and they didn't address the underlying systemic issues.
So a mixed bag of results then.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
What about his focus on reforming the justice system? The article specifically mentions that.
Right, that was a big thing for him. Khan believed that a fair and efficient justice system was the foundation for a truly equal society, like the bedrock. He saw it as essential for tackling corruption and ensuring everyone was treated equally under the law.
Makes sense. You can't really have true equality if the system itself is rigged against certain people.
Exactly. It's like trying to run a race where some people start miles ahead of others. He was trying to level the playing field, not just economically, but in terms of access to justice as well. But, reforming a whole justice system, that's a massive undertaking.
And I bet he faced a ton of pushback.
Oh, yeah, you bet. Tons. Remember, we're talking about a system that had benefited certain people for a long time. Connections, influence, that's how things worked.
Right. Not actual justice.
Yeah, not so much. Khan was basically trying to dismantle a system that a lot of powerful people wanted to keep in place. He was shaking things up, and they didn't like it one bit.
So did his, cricket background help him at all? Like, did his fame give him any leverage?
That's an interesting thought. I mean, his popularity as a cricket legend definitely gave him a platform, a way to connect with people.
Right.
And that image of him as a national hero, someone who'd brought pride to Pakistan, that definitely resonated with people who were tired of the same old political faces. But let's be real. Cricket fame could only get him so far. Reforming the justice system meant taking on deep-rooted corruption, going up against really influential people and institutions. It wasn't a game he could win just by being charismatic.
So was he able to make any real progress? Did he actually reform the justice system?
It's tough to say. It's like most things in politics, a mixed bag. His supporters point to certain things he did. He set up these special accountability courts to speed up corruption cases. He pushed for more transparency in government. And at least on the surface, fighting corruption was a major focus of his time in office.
But there were definitely setbacks, right? Like those accusations of hypocrisy we talked about earlier.
Yeah, sadly. His critics argue that even though he talked a big game about getting rid of corruption, his efforts were often aimed at his political enemies.
Convenient.
Right. They accused him of using anti-corruption campaigns to silence his opponents and hold on to his own power. And there are worries about, due process not being followed, the law being applied unfairly, that kind of thing.
So, yeah, that fueled the whole hypocrisy argument.
Exactly. It's a shame because his commitment to justice, those principles of Medina we talked about, they were really admirable goals.
They were.
But it seems like the reality of governing, of dealing with all those power struggles, maybe it forced him to compromise on some of those ideals.
It's like that saying, power corrupts. Not that I'm saying Khan became corrupt, but maybe being in power, having to fight to stay in power, maybe that changed his focus in ways he didn't expect.
That's a good point. Something for our listener to think about. How does having power, even when you're trying to do good things, how does it change the leader themselves?
Yeah. That's a question for the ages. Speaking of power, Khan's time as prime minister didn't exactly end smoothly, did it? The article mentions something about a vote of no confidence. What does that even mean? Like, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Okay, imagine a classroom where the students get to decide if they want to keep their teacher or not.
No.
If enough students say no confidence in the teacher has to go.
Got it.
In Pakistan, their system is kind of like that. The prime minister needs the support of most of the members of parliament. If they lose that support, they can be kicked out through this vote of no confidence.
So basically, parliament said, we don't want Khan as our teacher anymore.
Pretty much.
What led to that? Was it just the hypocrisy stuff, or were there other issues?
It was a combination of things. The economy was struggling, inflation was going up, and people were feeling it. There were also tensions between Khan and the military. They've always had a lot of influence in Pakistani politics.
All right.
And of course, there were those accusations that Khan was becoming too authoritarian, cracking down on people who disagreed with him. All of that together led to this loss of confidence in his leadership.
So a perfect storm of problems, basically.
You could say that.
And this all happened back in April 2022, which means this article, published in March 2023,
Right.
it captures Khan at a very particular moment.
Yeah, he's not in power anymore, but he's definitely not forgotten. The article emphasizes how he's still influential. It calls him a leader who is not afraid to speak truth to power.
Even though he doesn't have that power anymore.
Exactly. It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. It mentions how he's been criticizing the current government pretty openly. He's not just fading away. He's still trying to be a player in the political game.
He's not going down without a fight.
Right. And he's getting attention internationally too, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Khan's become a pretty big voice on the global stage, especially in the Muslim world. He talks a lot about issues like Islamophobia, Western foreign policy, the idea that the world needs to be fairer.
He's kind of positioning himself as this, rebel leader, the guy who's not afraid to call out the powerful.
You got it. But, his international reputation is just as complicated as his reputation in Pakistan. Not everyone's a fan.
Oh, I bet.
His critics see him as a populist, someone who uses simple rhetoric and plays on people's emotions.
Yeah, I can see that.
They point to his language, how he sometimes frames things in black and white terms. They also question if he's truly committed to democracy, given his crackdowns on dissent and how he tried to weaken institutions that he saw as obstacles.
So it seems like no matter where you look, domestically or internationally, there are these two very different views of Imran Khan. He's either a hero fighting for justice or a dangerous populist who's undermining democracy. How do we even make sense of that?
That's the tricky part, right? And it gets to this bigger issue of how we judge political leaders. It's never simple. We can't just go by sound bites or slogans. We have to look at the whole picture, the good, the bad, the intentions, the unintended consequences, the context, the challenges, the compromises. It's complicated.
Yeah, no easy answers.
Nope. And that's what makes this deep dive into Imran Khan so interesting. We're not just listing off events. We're wrestling with these bigger questions about leadership, about power, about the never-ending challenge of creating a fair and just society.
And this conversation's not over yet. Remember, this article we've been talking about, it was published back in March 2023.
Right, over a year ago.
A lot's happened since then. Khan's story is still going on. His legacy is still being written.
Exactly. And for our listener, that's the key takeaway. Stay curious. Keep digging into this story. Look for different perspectives. Think critically about what you're reading and hearing, and form your own opinions about this complex and, let's be honest, controversial figure.
So what happens next for Khan? Has he just accepted his fate, or is he planning a comeback? And maybe more importantly, what does his story tell us about the state of politics in Pakistan and the challenges facing the world today?
Well, one thing's for sure, Khan doesn't give up easily. Since he was ousted, he's been anything but quiet.
Yeah, the article mentions he's been holding rallies, speaking out against the government.
Oh yeah, huge rallies, drawing massive crowds. And he's become even more critical of the government, even more than before.
So it's like losing power has actually made him stronger in a way.
In a way, yeah. He's really playing up this idea that he was the victim of some kind of foreign plot.
A conspiracy.
Right, a conspiracy. And that taps into a lot of the anti-Western sentiment that already exists in Pakistan.
So he's really solidifying his image as a populist leader.
Exactly. It's that classic us against them narrative. And it seems to be working. A lot of people who are fed up with the system, they're drawn to that kind of message.
But is this all just political theater? Or does he actually have a chance of making a comeback?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, Pakistani politics is notoriously unpredictable, but I don't think anyone would count Khan out just yet. He's still got a lot of support, especially among younger people who see him as a symbol of hope, someone who can bring real change.
Yeah, and the whole idea of him being a victim of a rigged system, that resonates with a lot of people too. People who feel like the system has never worked for them.
Absolutely. So yeah, he's definitely still a force to be reckoned with.
It's interesting, though, because it feels like this is part of a bigger trend we're seeing globally. This rise of populism, this rejection of traditional political elites. People are looking for leaders who they feel are authentic, who are willing to say what they think, even if it's controversial.
Right. Even if it's oversimplified or, not totally accurate.
Yeah, exactly. But what does that mean for Pakistan? Can a country facing so many complex challenges really afford to be led by someone who seems to thrive on division and confrontation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, Khan's supporters are convinced that he's the only one who can break through the corruption and make things better, but his critics worry that he's taking the country down a dangerous path toward, more authoritarianism and instability. Like always, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's never black and white.
Never. It's a reminder that leadership is complicated, especially in a place like Pakistan, with its history of military coups and political turmoil and deep social divisions. It's a tough place to govern.
It really is. But even beyond the immediate political situation in Pakistan, Khan's story raises some important questions about democracy in general. I mean, think about it. His rise to power, his time in office, all the controversy, and now his continued influence, it all kind of speaks to this global trend of people losing faith in institutions, looking for strongman leaders, wanting easy answers to really complex problems.
It's a pattern we're seeing all over the world in so many different countries, and it's changing the way politics works in a big way.
It makes you wonder, where do we go from here? If democracy isn't working for people, if they don't trust the institutions, if the political conversation is just full of anger and division, what are the options? Are we just stuck in this cycle of populism where every new leader promises to fix everything, but nothing really changes?
That's the challenge, isn't it? And to be honest, I don't have the answers. But I think this is exactly why it's so important to have these kinds of deep dives. By looking closely at someone like Imran Khan, we're not just learning about one person or one country.
It's bigger than that.
It is. We're grappling with these fundamental questions about power, about leadership, about the challenges facing democracy in the 21st century. And those are questions that affect all of us, no matter where we live.
Right. And ultimately, these are questions that each of us has to wrestle with on our own. We can't just sit back and watch. We have to be engaged, to think critically about what we're seeing and hearing, and hold our leaders accountable, whether they're former athletes or career politicians.
That's what it means to be an informed citizen, especially in this day and age. With all the information flying around, so much of it misleading or just plain wrong, it's on each of us to filter through it all, to figure out what's true and what's not, and to form our own opinions based on facts, not just emotions.
And that's what we've tried to do in this deep dive into the life and legacy of Imran Khan. We followed his journey from cricket star to politician, explored his goals, his successes, his failures, his controversies, his fall from power, and his continuing influence. We've looked at the complexities of Pakistani politics, the allure of populism, and the challenges facing democracy in a world that seems increasingly divided and distrustful.
But most importantly, we've encouraged you, our listener, to keep digging, to explore this story further, to consider different viewpoints, to question your own assumptions, and to come to your own conclusions about Imran Khan, his mission, and what it all means.
Because at the end of the day, that's what the deep dive is all about, giving you the tools and the knowledge to navigate our complex world. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.